During a recent campout, something unexpected happened. A ginger cat, known to park rangers as Rusty, roamed the area. He was a survivor, often lounging on mossy rocks as sunlight filtered through the trees. This particular spot was part of his familiar territory within the Manaila National Forest in West Virginia. The warm, pine-scented air was comforting to him. Rusty had a clear understanding of his surroundings. He knew where to find hidden snacks left by picnickers and the various paths they took. Just the day before, the clearing had been filled with laughter and the inviting smell of grilled food. The Havenwood Community Chapel had hosted its annual summer picnic. Rusty watched from a distance, his amber eyes keenly observing the scene to calculate the potential for leftover treats. Patience had always been one of his strengths, allowing him to wait until the humans departed. Now the clearing was quiet, with only remnants of their gathering left behind. Flattened grass, discarded paper plates, and the lingering scent of hot dogs and hamburgers. Rusty leapt down from his perch, moving silently as he began to search the area for any scraps. He soon found a half-eaten hot dog bun, a few stray potato chips, and a small piece of fried chicken. Though it wasn't a grand meal, it was enough to ease his hunger. As he was about to continue exploring, he heard a faint whimper from the depths of the forest. It was a soft, pitiful sound that caught his attention. Initially, he thought about ignoring it. After all, survival required a degree of independence. Yet, the whimpering grew more urgent, tugging at his curiosity, and perhaps awakening a long-dormant sense of compassion. With caution, Rusty crept into the denser brush, his instincts guiding him closer. The scent of the distressed animal became stronger. It was a young dog, a German Shepherd puppy, tangled in a thorny vine, still too young to fend for itself, and no more than a few months old. This unexpected encounter was something Rusty had not anticipated, and it called for a response he had never considered before. The black and tan puppy was covered in mud and leaves, its eyes wide with fear and confusion. It struggled weakly, its whimpers turning into yelps as thorns dug into its skin. Clearly lost and separated from its owner, it seemed utterly helpless. Rusty watched for a moment, his expression unreadable. He could have easily walked away. After all, the puppy wasn't his responsibility. It was just another victim of the wilderness, a stark reminder of nature's harsh realities. Yet something kept him there. Perhaps it was the puppy's vulnerability, the way it looked at him with fear and a silent plea. Or maybe it was a distant memory, a glimpse of his own kittenhood, long before he had become the survivor he was today. For reasons he couldn't fully grasp, he just couldn't turn his back. Approaching cautiously, Rusty made a soft chirping sound, a sound he hadn't used since his own kitten days. The puppy stopped struggling and looked up at him, its tail wagging tentatively. Gently, Rusty nudged the vine that had ensnared the puppy's leg, using his paw to pull it away. The puppy winced but seemed to realize he was there to help. Once free, it collapsed to the ground, exhausted, and licked Rusty's paw in a tentative gesture of gratitude. Taken aback, Rusty wasn't used to such affection. Scanning the woods around him, he detected no sign of the puppy's owner or any humans nearby. It was evident the puppy had been lost for quite some time. As the sun set, the shadows grew longer beneath the trees, and the air turned colder. The puppy pressed itself against his side, shivering. Despite his usual preference for solitude, Rusty didn't pull away. He felt the thin body trembling and heard its soft, whimpering breaths. It was clear the puppy wouldn't survive the night on its own. Glancing back toward the clearing where Havenwood lay, lights twinkling in the distance, he considered the dangers of the human world. There were cars, unfriendly dogs, and people who didn't take kindly to stray cats. Yet he knew the puppy had no chance out here in the wilderness. A decision began to form in his mind, one that surprised even him. He would lead the puppy towards town, toward the possibility of help. Taking a deep breath, he started walking slowly toward the edge of the woods. The puppy, weak and limping, struggled to keep up. Rusty paused frequently, allowing it to catch its breath. The night was filled with the sounds of the forest, but all he could think about was the little life beside him. The forest was alive with sounds, owls hooting, leaves rustling, and the distant howl of a coyote. The puppy whimpered, pressing closer to Rusty's side. For the first time in a long while, the cat felt a sense of responsibility. It was a burden he hadn't asked for, yet it was one he couldn't ignore. Life in the wilderness had brought them together, an unlikely duo, united by a shared loss and a pressing need for survival. As morning light filtered through the high canopy, it offered little warmth. Rusty awoke feeling stiff and hungry. The puppy lay curled beside him, its head resting on Rusty's flank, still asleep and breathing shallowly. With a gentle nudge from Rusty, the puppy stirred, blinking its eyes open and letting out a weak whine. Rusty understood they needed to keep moving. Staying in the woods any longer would only weaken the little one. He began walking in the direction they had traveled the night before. The puppy struggled to rise, its legs shaky, and it stumbled after him, moving slowly and unsteadily. The terrain was tough, filled with undergrowth, fallen logs, and rocky outcrops. Rusty was agile and experienced, navigating it easily, but the puppy was clumsy and inexperienced, tripping often and whimpering. Rusty would pause and wait, though his patience was wearing thin. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to abandon the pup. Hunger gnawed at him. It had been too long since his last proper meal, just scraps from a picnic. He scanned his surroundings, alert for any sign of potential prey. Soon, he spotted a mouse darting through the underbrush and took off after it. Moving quickly and quietly, he caught it with a swift bite and indulged in most of the mouse, the tiny bones crunching between his teeth. He glanced at the puppy, who was watching him with wide, hungry eyes. A pang of guilt washed over him. After a moment of hesitation, he nudged the remains of the mouse toward the puppy. It wasn't a lot, but it was something. The puppy devoured the offering eagerly, its tail wagging weakly, and it licked Rusty's paw, a gesture of gratitude that the cat found surprisingly tolerable. To his surprise, Rusty realized he was beginning to care for the puppy's well-being. This feeling was dangerous. Caring brought vulnerability, and vulnerability was a luxury a stray cat couldn't afford. They continued their journey, and Rusty noticed the puppy's condition visibly deteriorating. Its coat was dull and matted, and its eyes were sunken. The little one was fading, and Rusty knew they had to keep moving. Rusty felt increasingly tired, struggling to walk as he realized time was running out for the puppy. If they didn't reach the town soon, the little one wouldn't survive. They hadn't encountered any water since leaving the small stream where Rusty had found the puppy. His throat was dry, and the puppy's breathing was labored, its tongue hanging out. Remembering a small creek that ran along the edge of the woods closer to town, he decided to head that way, hoping it wasn't dry. The journey to the creek was tough. The puppy collapsed several times, trembling with exhaustion. Rusty had to nudge it repeatedly to keep it moving. He could feel his own energy fading as well. Finally, they reached the creek. It was just a trickle, but it was enough. Rusty drank eagerly, the cool water soothing his dry throat. The puppy drank greedily, its whole body shaking. While the water helped them feel a little better, it wasn't enough to sustain them for long. They rested by the creek for a while. The puppy dozed, though not soundly. Rusty stayed alert, scanning their surroundings. He knew that getting closer to town also meant greater danger. As the afternoon moved on, they began to travel again. The woods started to thin, opening up to fields. In the distance, he could see rooftops, and the smell of wood smoke and cooking food filled the air. The puppy, sensing the approach of people, began to whine and pulled toward the town. Rusty's concern grew. He was well aware of the potential dangers: cars, other dogs, and unfriendly people. He kept to the edge of the fields, using the tall grass for cover. The puppy, unaware of the risks, stumbled along beside him. Suddenly, a car sped down a nearby road, its engine roaring loudly. The puppy yelped in fear and pressed against Rusty's side. Rusty bristled, realizing just how exposed they were in the open field. He nudged the puppy forward, urging it to move faster. They needed to reach the safety of the houses before another car came. They were nearly there, just a few hundred yards from the outskirts of Havenwood. But the puppy was limping badly, nearly out of energy. Spotting a small overgrown garden behind one of the houses, Rusty knew it would be a better place to hide. Finding a sheltered spot to rest, Rusty guided the puppy through a narrow gap in the hedge. They settled in tall grass, hidden from view, creating a fragile alliance against the world's dangers. Rusty, the seasoned stray, felt the weight of responsibility for the vulnerable puppy beside him. The burden, though unfamiliar, was beginning to feel heavy. As the late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the garden, Rusty took a moment to groom himself. He licked his paws and smoothed down his fur. The puppy, panting heavily, lay next to him, its eyes half closed. Sounds from the nearby playground, the laughter of children, the buzzing of a lawnmower, and the distant clang of a church bell drifted on the breeze. Rusty surveyed the surrounding houses. Most were older, with peeling paint and slightly worn porches. Some had well-kept gardens, while others, like theirs, were left to grow wild. It was a quiet residential street where neighbors knew one another, and life unfolded at a slower pace. This setting was a stark contrast to the bustling city streets of his past. However, Rusty understood that hiding in the garden wouldn't be a sustainable solution. The puppy needed nourishment and proper care, and he needed to assess whether venturing into town posed any risks. He was familiar with Havenwood's outskirts from occasional scavenging trips near the grocery store, but he had always kept his distance from people. Just then, the puppy whimpered, trying to stand, but collapsing again, looking up at Rusty with pleading eyes. Its tail thumped weakly against the ground. Rusty felt a pang of sympathy, a feeling he grappled with as he navigated his instincts for survival. Making a decision, he recognized the need to take a chance. He would scout the area for any signs of help, an open door, leftover food, or any gesture of kindness. Still, he remained cautious of potential dangers like unfriendly dogs, hostile cats, and humans who might chase him away. He gently nudged the puppy, signaling it to stay put. The puppy whined again, but seemed to comprehend. With that, Rusty slipped through the gap in the hedge and onto the sidewalk. They, moving cautiously and staying low to the ground, senses heightened and alert for any signs of danger or assistance. As Rusty walked down the street, he stayed close to the houses, using the shadows for cover. He spotted a home that stood out, thanks to a vibrant flower garden in front. An elderly woman was kneeling among the flowers, her back to him. Dressed in a faded floral dress and a straw hat, she hummed softly to herself. She seemed harmless enough, so Rusty continued his careful observation. Next, he noticed a house with a dog bowl on the porch, but a large barking dog chained in the yard quickly deterred him. He moved on to another house with a cat flap in the door, though the strong scent of a territorial tomcat sent him on his way. Just as he was turning back to check on the puppy, he heard children's laughter coming from across the street. A group of kids were playing in a nearby park, throwing a ball and bursting with excitement. A pang of longing flickered within Rusty. He had never known the carefree joy of play, his life having always been a struggle for survival. Shaking off the feeling, he refocused on his mission. Returning to the overgrown garden, he assessed the situation again. The elderly woman tending to her roses still seemed like the best option. She appeared gentle and kind, and her house was noticeably quiet and safe. Rusty nudged the puppy once more, urging it to follow him. The puppy struggled to its feet, legs trembling as it limped after Rusty, moving slowly and painfully. They crept through a gap in the hedge and onto the sidewalk, making their way toward the flower-filled yard. The woman was still there, focused on her plants. As Rusty and the puppy approached, instinct took over, and the puppy began to whine louder, stumbling toward her with its tail wagging weakly. Startled by the noise, the woman turned, and her gaze fell on the puppy's emaciated body and pleading eyes. Her expression softened instantly. She placed her gardening tools down and knelt, speaking in a soothing voice. "Well, hello there, little one. Where did you come from? You look lost and hungry." The puppy collapsed at her feet, whimpering softly. Rusty watched from the shadows of the hedge, his amber eyes fixed on her, ready to run at the first sign of danger. However, something in him sensed that this woman was different. She was kind and might be their best chance. Gently, Sarah, as the elderly woman was named, scooped up the trembling puppy and cradled it in her arms, feeling its fragile bones beneath the matted fur. Her heart ached as she took in its condition. Sarah had always cared deeply for animals, so when she saw the puppy left behind, her heart went out to it. "You poor thing," she whispered, gently stroking its head. "You're just skin and bones. Let's see what we can do for you." She carefully carried the puppy into her home, a quaint bungalow that smelled of lavender and freshly baked bread. The cozy space was filled with various knickknacks and had aged furniture, along with a grandfather clock ticking softly in the hallway. Once inside, she placed the puppy on a soft rug in the living room. It lay there, visibly exhausted, its eyes following her as she moved around the room. As Sarah examined the puppy more closely, she noticed the matted fur, the ticks clinging to its skin, and the sores on its paws. It was clearly a German Shepherd, a lovely breed, but in rough shape. A quick estimation led her to believe it was about 4 or 5 months old. She filled a bowl with fresh water and watched as the puppy lapped at it eagerly, its body shaking from both thirst and nervousness. Next, Sarah headed to the kitchen, where she found some leftover chicken and rice. After warming it up, she offered it to the puppy, who devoured the food as if it hadn't eaten in days. While the puppy ate, Sarah prepared a basin of warm water mixed with gentle pet shampoo. She took her time bathing the puppy, washing away the dirt and grime while carefully removing the ticks. At first, the puppy whimpered, but it soon seemed to realize that Sarah meant well, its tail giving a cautious wag as she dried it with a soft towel. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye outside the living room window. When she looked closer, she saw a scruffy-looking ginger cat with striking amber eyes watching her intently. Sarah recognized the cat. It had been a familiar face around the yard, often shy and elusive. It dawned on her that the cat and the puppy must have been together, and perhaps the cat had led the puppy to her, seeking help. Admiration washed over her as she saw the cat's remarkable act of compassion. It reminded her of the unexpected bonds that can form between creatures in need. Feeling inspired, she went to the kitchen and filled a small bowl with milk. She opened the back door and set the bowl on the porch as a gesture of goodwill for the watchful cat. Returning to the living room, Sarah found the puppy curled up on the rug in a peaceful sleep. She settled into her armchair, reflecting on the events of the day while keeping an eye on her new friend. As the puppy slept, the woman felt a profound sense of peace. Since her husband George had passed away 5 years ago, the house had felt empty, lacking his laughter and warmth. Caring for this lost puppy, along with a stray cat, was filling a void she hadn't realized was so deep. She understood that she couldn't keep the puppy. Her age and health made that challenging. This young, energetic German Shepherd needed a loving home, a family capable of giving it the attention and care it deserved. For now, though, she could offer a safe haven, a place for the puppy to heal. Looking out the window, she saw the ginger cat still sitting on the porch, cautiously sipping the milk she had put out. A smile crept across her face as she sensed that this unlikely duo, the lost puppy and the stray cat, might change her life in ways she couldn't yet foresee. The kindness she had extended to them was already bringing warmth and purpose back into her home after so many years. With the milk bowl now empty, Rusty, the stray cat, sat on the porch, carefully licking his whiskers clean. He felt a cautious sense of relief. The puppy, which he had come to think of as Shep after overhearing the woman use the name, was safe, at least for the moment. She seemed genuinely kind, and her home was inviting and warm. Rusty peered through the window. Shep was curled up on a rug, sleeping peacefully. He looked much better already, cleaner and more relaxed. This stirred a mix of feelings within Rusty, a sense of accomplishment, a hint of pride, and a growing unease. He was a loner, accustomed to relying only on himself, and this newfound bond with Shep and Sarah felt unfamiliar. In the days that followed, a routine took shape. Sarah cared for Shep with unwavering dedication. She provided small, regular meals, gradually increasing the portions as his strength improved. She also administered medication for the worms and applied antiseptic cream to his sore paws. Sarah took him for short walks in the yard, careful not to overdo it. Rusty hung around, keeping his distance, but always watching. He spent most of his time in Sarah's garden, hiding among the flowers and bushes, accepting the food she left out each morning and evening. A delightful mix of dry kibble and canned tuna, a feast compared to his usual scavenged meals. Over time, he became more at ease with Sarah's presence. As Sarah sat on the porch, she noticed how Shep was becoming more comfortable around her. Although he kept a certain distance, allowing her to stroke his fur, he preferred the outdoors to the confines of the house. Yet he felt drawn to the warmth and safety of Sarah's yard. In the meantime, Shep was thriving. His coat began to shine again, his eyes sparkled with life, and he started to gain weight. While he still had some weakness, the playful energy of a puppy was returning. He eagerly followed Sarah around the house, his tail wagging joyfully. He tried to engage Rusty, the cat, in playful antics, but the cat would often respond with a hiss and a swat, maintaining his dignified distance. Despite this aloof demeanor, a bond was taking shape between Rusty and Shep. They often found themselves lying together in the sun, with Shep resting his head on Rusty's side. The cat seemed to tolerate this close contact, appearing to enjoy the puppy's warmth. Having shared a difficult past, they had developed an unlikely connection that crossed the boundaries of their different species. Sarah watched their interactions with satisfaction. She felt a sense of fulfillment in bringing these two lost souls together, offering them a temporary sanctuary. At the same time, she began to look for Shep's family. She put up posters around town at the grocery store, post office, and veterinary clinic, describing the puppy and asking if anyone recognized him. She also contacted the local animal shelter, but no one had reported a missing German Shepherd puppy. Sarah understood that Shep couldn't stay with her forever. At her age, managing a large, energetic dog was not feasible. While she hoped to find his owners, that hope began to fade with each passing day. She started to think about finding him a good permanent home. One evening, as she relaxed on the porch watching Rusty and Shep play in the yard, she couldn't shake the pang of sadness that washed over her. She had grown attached to both animals, especially Shep. The thought of him leaving filled her with a profound sense of loss, yet she recognized that it was the right course of action. She needed to consider what was best for both Shep and Rusty. She suspected that Rusty, despite his independent nature, would miss Shep greatly. Her heart warmed as she observed Shep, bursting with excitement, chase a butterfly across the lawn, with Rusty pretending to be uninterested but following at a distance, his eyes keenly fixed on the playful puppy. It was a beautiful sight. This friendship, forged through shared struggles, had blossomed in the most unexpected way. A spark of joy returned to Sarah's quiet life when she met Shep, a playful puppy. She knew she would always hold the memories of him close. A week later, her grandson Michael came to visit. He was a tall young man with broad shoulders, a kind smile, and gentle eyes that reminded Sarah of her late husband. Michael lived about an hour away on a small farm where he raised chickens and a few sheep. He often helped Sarah with chores and kept her company. As soon as Michael entered the living room, Shep dashed over, his tail wagging enthusiastically. "Well, hello there, fella," Michael exclaimed, crouching down to pet the puppy. "Grandma, where did you find this little guy?" Sarah shared the story of how Shep and another dog named Rusty had come to her doorstep, telling Michael about their journey from the woods and the challenges they faced. Michael listened closely, his expression softening as he absorbed the tale. Shep, now full of affection, began licking Michael's face. "He's a beautiful dog, Grandma," Michael said. "A German Shepherd, right?" "Yes," Sarah replied. "I've been trying to find his owners, but no one has come forward. I'm afraid he was abandoned." Michael looked at Shep with compassion. He had always wanted a dog, but his busy life on the farm made it difficult. As the afternoon wore on, he played with Shep in the yard, throwing a ball and watching the puppy run with joy. Rusty lingered in the shadows of the flower garden, watching with a mix of aloofness and a hint of jealousy. When the sun began to set, Sarah and Michael sat on the porch enjoying iced tea, with Shep contentedly resting at Michael's feet. After a moment, Sarah took a deep breath and addressed a thought she had been holding. "Michael, I've been thinking. I'm not able to care for Shep long term. He needs someone who can give him the exercise and attention he deserves. Would you consider taking him?" Michael looked surprised, though he didn't seem entirely against the idea. He gently stroked Shep's head, pondering. "I've always wanted a dog, Grandma. I have plenty of space on the farm. He'd be good company and could help keep an eye on the livestock." After a brief pause, he added, "But what about you, Grandma? You've grown attached to him." Sarah smiled, a little sadly. "I have, but I know this is the best thing for him, and I'll still get to see him when you visit." Michael nodded, understanding her decision. He looked at Shep, who gazed back at him with trusting eyes. "All right, Grandma," he said. "I'll take him. I'll give him a good home." Sarah felt a mix of relief and sadness. She knew it was the right choice, but that didn't make it easier. The next morning, Michael got ready to leave with Shep. He had brought a dog crate, placing it carefully in the back of his pickup truck. He thanked Sarah for everything she had done, promising to bring Shep back for visits. Shep, sensing something was different, seemed a bit anxious. He whined softly, looking back at Sarah and then at Rusty, who was sitting on the porch, observing everything. Rusty's face was unreadable, but Sarah thought she caught a glimmer of sadness in his amber eyes. Michael gently coaxed Shep into the crate, using calming words. Shep settled down, yet his gaze remained fixed on Rusty. As Michael started the engine, Shep gave a soft bark, almost like a farewell. Rusty stayed still, watching the truck as it pulled away. Shep peered out the back window until the vehicle turned the corner, the sound of the engine fading away. A heavy silence filled Sarah's yard. She missed Shep's playful spirit immediately. Wrapping her arm around Rusty, she felt him tremble slightly. "He'll be all right, Rusty," she said softly. "He's going to a good home, and we'll still see him." Rusty looked up at her, his eyes holding a mix of emotions. He didn't purr or nuzzle against her, but he didn't pull away either. He accepted her comfort, acknowledging the loss together. The new beginning for Shep marked an ending too, a farewell to a brief yet meaningful friendship. The yard felt oddly empty without Shep's lively energy. Rusty wandered through the flower beds, sniffing where Shep loved to roll and dig. The scents were fading, but the memories remained sharp and poignant. When he reached the porch, he expected to find the usual bowl of food Sarah left out for him. It was there, filled with his favorite tuna, but his appetite was gone. He took a few bites, then sat down, gazing out at the empty street. He missed the warmth of Shep pressed against him, the playful nips, and those clumsy attempts to get him to play. He missed their shared moments. He had built a quiet bond during their journey through the wilderness, a bond he never thought possible. Rusty always kept his distance from others, focusing on his independence and self-reliance. But Shep had changed that, leaving an emptiness he felt deeply. One afternoon, Sarah stepped onto the porch with a warm cup of tea and sat beside him, gently stroking his fur. She sensed his sadness. She too felt the loss of Shep acutely. Their home had transformed, feeling quieter and emptier, even though it had always been just the two of them for decades. "Rusty, he will be happy," she said softly. "Michael will take good care of him. He has a big farm, plenty of space to run and play." Rusty looked up at her, his amber eyes searching for reassurance. Though he didn't grasp her words, he sensed her comforting tone. Leaning into her touch, he accepted her kindness, yet the urge to return to his familiar life soon pulled at him. With a gentle lick on Sarah's hand, a brief thank you, he jumped off the porch, slipping into the shadows of the bushes without looking back. He made his way to the park at the edge of Havenwood, the place where he had first met Shep, feeling lost and scared. The clearing was quiet now, void of the lively picnics from weeks earlier. The smells of food and activity had faded, replaced by pine and damp earth. Rusty patrolled his territory, marking his space and asserting himself. He hunted, catching a mouse and a small bird, satisfying his physical hunger, but the emptiness inside lingered. Drawn to the edge of the woods, he returned to the spot where he and Shep had first emerged into the sunlight, looking towards Havenwood and Sarah's house. He knew he could go back to her. She would welcome him, feed him, and offer shelter. Yet something held him back. As a stray, he had grown accustomed to being on his own, relying on no one. He couldn't imagine returning to complete dependence, even on someone as caring as Sarah. His time with Shep had changed him, teaching him about compassion and connection. Rusty felt the heavy ache of loss. He was not the same cat who used to forage for leftovers in the park, indifferent to those around him. Now, he had experienced the warmth of companionship, and that memory lingered like a bittersweet echo of what he had lost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows among the trees, Rusty turned away from the bustling town. He retreated into the familiar solitude of the woods, embracing the quiet of his previous life. Alone once more, he was still changed. He carried with him the memories of Shep and Sarah, the kindness they had shown him. These memories stayed close, a gentle reminder of the unexpected bonds that can form even in the most unlikely situations. Yes, he was a stray, but it was different now. He was a stray enriched by the brief experiences of friendship, tinged with sorrow. Continuing his search for food, Rusty moved through life on his own, yet with a heart forever touched by those he had loved and lost.